Growing up on the reservation, the only show in town was movie night in the church basement. Raised on cowboys and Indians, we cheered for the cowboys, never realizing we were the Indians.
Soon we will be gone. Your civilization will destroy us. But by your magic, we will live forever.
Got to cut your throat to get it through your head. I'm a white man.
You fooled him, G. You fooled him. You fooled them all.
You know, the only thing more pathetic than Indians on TV is Indians watching Indians on TV.
I'm an Injun, a Cree who grew up in one of the most isolated native communities on Earth, close to the Arctic Circle. Up here, we don't wear feathers or ride horses. But because of the movies, a lot of the world still thinks we do. I'm on a journey to make sense of how Hollywood's fantasy about Indians influenced the world, even natives like me.
You gotta look like a warrior. You gotta look like you just came back from killing a buffalo.
But our tribe never hunted buffalo, we were fishermen.
But the myth of the fearless, stoic warrior lives on.
We'll never be able to change the fantasy of who and what Indians are. That fantasy will always be there. We'll always be on cover of novels saying, Cheyenne warrior.
I'm off to Hollywood, 4,000 miles through the American West, in the reservation Indians' vehicle of choice, the res car.
A res car is probably like a piece of luggage or something to other people, and you kind of keep it together with tape and with string. And, you know, I have all sorts of people telling me, oh yeah, I know that story about driving backwards because we actually did it. I had a res car and, you know, ignition didn't work, so we had like a screwdriver in the ignition and, you know, all sorts of stuff. Nobody said to me that they had a car with 3 wheels yet, but that would be a res car.
These are the American Great Plains, the setting for most of Hollywood's Indian stories. I'm headed west to the sacred Black Hills, once the domain of Chief Sitting Bull and the legendary Tashunkawitko, otherwise known as Crazy Horse.
Tashunkawitko, which does not mean crazy horse. Tashunkawitko means his horses are spirited. He was a great horse trainer. And all his horses had spirit. You could just see them prancing, yeah.
I've always wanted to ride a horse on the open plains. I finally feel like a real Indian. This is where Crazy Horse outmaneuvered Custer at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Ever since, Hollywood has been telling that story over and over again, turning the battle into legend. and Crazy Horse, an icon.
Well, you dirty, moth-eating, cockeyed son of a rattlesnake, if it ain't old Crazy Horse, cheaper than Sue's.
Legend has it, he killed Custer.
There's a romanticism and the glory to Little Bighorn. We defeated Custer and all this and that, all at that emotional level. But you know, within 15 years, our leader, Crazy Horse, was dead, Sitting Bull was dead, you know, and we were herded up.
Pine Ridge is the poorest Indian reservation in North America. These are the descendants of Crazy Horse. Their Lakota chief is a direct descendant of Chief Red Cloud, who fought alongside Crazy Horse.
So, this is where it happened?
This is where it happened. Right here. This is where Chief Crazy Horse was imprisoned here.
After surrendering here to troops, Crazy Horse was stabbed in the back.
So I always think this is sacred ground to me, where our ancestors used to walk, where they used to camp and live here.
To Native people, Crazy Horse is a mystical warrior, just like in the movies.
It was a continuation of the idea that natives were really great warriors, that they were just incredibly skilled at warfare, almost unstoppable, really.
That's it, Neil. You know, I'm really glad that you're doing this. For once, somebody's taken the time to tell the real story of Crazy Horse. As he says in his song, whenever you see the Black Hills, remember me. That is our homeland, our sacred grounds.
Carved out of the sacred Black Hills is Crazy Horse Memorial. When complete, it will be the largest statue to a human anywhere.
There'll be a 44-foot stone feather on the back of his head. It will be carved from 11 pieces of stone.
An ironic tribute to a man who, it is said, refused to have his image captured. Most experts agree that every photo of him is a fake.
Who was Crazy Horse? Not who was Crazy Horse, who is Crazy Horse? Who he is he's an idea. He's an embodiment of the human spirit. He's an embodiment of what can be done when you're centered and balanced within yourself as a human being. When you have a relationship to the spiritual reality that you are a part of. See, to me, he's an embodiment of that.
Shortly there will be a blast.
Good crowd there. It's nice doing a TV shot. Maybe a couple more I'll be able to get in the movies someday. And maybe change some of the movie cliches, you know. You see every day in the movies, or the settlers come in, gets the Indian loaded and wants his resources, you know. Say, Injun, which way does this road go? Road stay, you go. You don't understand. Someday we want to live together and love one another like brothers and sisters. We cannot love the white eyes. It is painful to kiss forked tongue.
Zigzagging my way through the American heartland, I'm hoping to make sense of the world's enduring love affair with the Hollywood Indian. In the movies, we're often portrayed as spiritual, noble, and free. This image has captured the world's imagination. This fascination with everything native begins with the very first explorers. They encounter hundreds of nations, rich and diverse cultures, languages, and beliefs. The world is hooked.
Native Americans were among the first subjects for films. Thomas Edison shot silence about Native Americans. This is in the late 1800s.
Thomas Edison unveiled his kinetoscope in Times Square, and it was a penny machine that played the Laguna Pueblo ceremonies and dances. And those were the very first moving images.
There were more than 100 silents made involving Native Americans, very much because this part of American history, of course, was really still ongoing at the time that cinema was really being born.
With populations dwindling, most natives are confined to reservations. Then, as film is being invented, the 7th Cavalry, in revenge for Little Bighorn, opens fire on the last free community of natives. 300 men, women, and children are killed at Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
That is a genocide that occurred, and the culture wanted to perpetuate the idea that these people are now mythological. You know, they don't even really exist. They're like dinosaurs.
The reason that Indians were projected so heavily into movies was the romance of the tragedy. Greek, Roman tragedy.
The Western as a form is a very open form. It's a very pure kind of American metaphor, a kind of frame within which you can write or say all kinds of things.
I think that the cinema was created to film First Nations. At the beginning, they were really pioneer when they went west with the first movie camera. If you look at The Iron Horse, John Ford's film, the promotion they did from that film, they are telling you that the crew was living like the pioneers, you know, that they were going through the same experience.
I read that in early cinema, they used to get extras in the cowboy movies that were real Indians, and they'd pay them with tobacco and firewater, and they even used to have armed guards to make sure these people didn't get up to any treachery on the set, you know?
Excellent. And it is Idiot Trust. Taking over the lead, Regular Mendici, followed by Mountain Timber.
In the movies, all natives are supreme horsemen, at one with their horse. But most of us can't even ride. Perhaps that myth was born here with the Crow people of Montana. The Crow are renowned writers throughout North America. It's like they were born on a horse.
The Crows, they love horses. Without a horse, it's like losing a mom or a family member. When a horse dies, some people cry.
There is a spiritual connection between the crow and the horse. Because the horse come along and he saved a lot of people like me, you know, from whatever. It heals you. It makes you think about something not yourself. But even though you became like this with him, you know, he was still something that you could open your hand to and let go. Something you gave away.
Fed up with seeing only white guys riding in the movies, Rod became one of Hollywood's top stuntmen.
I'm trying to take it to the next level. No longer am I just how, you know? Now I can drive a lowrider and shoot you with an Uzi. You can wrap me up in a turban. And I could be your worst nightmare.
He now trains young natives in the secrets of his craft.
Hey, come in toward me, come in toward me, now go! Stay there, woo! Come in, you're halt. You see some good in some of these kids, you don't want to bring it out in them. I'm trying to give that back. Because I can. Because I want to.
3 hours from sundown. Hoping to keep the sun from his eye.
I don't just take in anybody. If you can't ride your horse anywhere you want, with your hands out to your side and still being in control, that's horsemanship.
Such a
I'll put you on the edge. I want you to feel my excitement, you know? I want you to feel that. Woo! Take the hit, man. Take the hit. If you don't teach them, they're never gonna learn. And I take that in life. You know, if I don't tell people about Indians, they're gonna think we're all drunks. You know, we're gonna think we all can ride bareback.
Throughout the silent era, the Indian becomes not only a hero, but a Hollywood star.
The output of the silent era was tremendous. People in the silent days were going to movies every week. So much was being produced. So it was a natural for Native American perspectives to be viewed.
The portrayal of Native people on screen has changed dramatically since the silent era. They were a very popular character.
Native American people directing and acting in films, and they were bringing their viewpoints to the table too. And those were being listened to. Everything was wide open. It was really exciting times.
One of the most authentic films of its time, featuring real Native actors, is The Silent Enemy.
The silent enemy refers to starvation. It's what is occurring to Native people who are being encroached on, and how are they conquering the silent enemy of starvation. In the beginning of the film, it talks about the demise of American Indian people. And you're talking about a film in the 1930s when the population of American Indian people had dipped to around 250,000. So the idea of the vanishing American was probably very real in people's mind. So here we have this chance to capture the Indians before they vanish. And what better way to capture them than on film?
The most famous Indian of this era and star of the silent enemy is Chief Buffalo Child Longlands.
Buffalo Child Longlands in the movie becomes the ultimate warrior, the mystic warrior, the one who's going to help his people.
But Longlands lived his whole life with a dark secret.
He disguised his triracial background, Indian, black, and white, and promoted a new image of who he was. So he changed his name to Longlands. So he took off from there. What made him the darling of the cocktail set is that he would show up, his hair slicked back, dark skin, in his beautiful tuxedo, and everybody's looking for the Indian to appear. And they don't see this very sophisticated man in a tuxedo. When it came out that he was part black, of course he was shunned. And nobody wanted to invite him to any of their chic cocktail parties. He ended up at a benefactor's home in California and ended up committing suicide because it was going to be revealed about his true heritage.
I was lucky enough to grow up in a time when Native people were the cool thing to be. And I would remember going to parties where white people would come to me and want to touch my hair and would describe themselves getting an Indian name from an elder at some ceremony somewhere that they had managed to attend. And it was always, you know, Dakota.
Choosing your animal name. First, you choose your animal, which is your spirit, the animal most like you.
The Wolverine! I am the Wolverine! Oh!
Scattered throughout North America are summer camps like these, keeping Hollywood's notion of the noble savage alive and well. This is the event of the summer. Tribal Games. A time when boys become Indian braves at war.
What is interesting is that with all the bad images of the Indians, so many people want to be Indians. All the mythological apparel that the cinema put around the Indians, putting it in this magic land. Everybody wants to be there. And one of the way to be there was to become Indian.
David Teifner comes all the way from Austria.
I am here because I'm a counselor in Camp Nominee. I was chosen as a tribe leader as well for the Sioux tribe, which was a great, great surprise for me and a great honor.
Welcome to the Sioux tribe! We've got scouts and braves! Thanks to mighty warriors, never fear defeat! Sioux tribe, Sioux tribe, Sioux tribe, Sioux! Pass the peace, fight the crazy horse! Pass the peace, fight the crazy horse!
My knowledge isn't that great about natives. I mean, basically, it's from like 2 or 3 movies that I would have watched. But through these movies, I just got the whole mentality of the natives, gave me a very positive perspective. Like the unity, the family, the unity, how they hold together, like brotherhood.
I wonder if any of these kids have ever met a native person, or if their image of us comes only from the movies. I hope I don't disappoint them.
On one side, I like the peaceful image of the natives, but if necessary, the warrior image. I'd say it's very brutal. The natives had brutal times, but I think it was not if it was necessary.
In the 1930s, the Indian is transformed into a brutal savage. And America, struggling through the Great Depression, needs a new brand of hero.
There were a number of Hollywood films that came out in the early 1930s that followed in the steps of the silent enemy. And the Indians were the stars of these movies. But the interesting thing about that whole cycle, they just bombed at the box office. Americans are not that interested in them.
For the most part in that decade, we're looking at films where it's the savage. It's the attacking marauders.
Savages! That's my wife, Yakima, my squaw. Yes, but she's savage. Si, senor. She's a little bit savage, I think.
People lined up in droves. Americans loved Westerns. It's in our blood.
Stagecoach is the iconic Western. It's the Western that all others were really modeled after, and it's one of the most damaging movies for Native people in history. You have white society inside a stagecoach, and they are besieged on all sides by Native people, by the wild of America. Those that are stopping progress, those that are backwards, those that are vicious and bloodthirsty. Stagecoach summed up and gave the opinion of Native people for decades to the populace in the U.S. That's how they thought of us, and it's because of John Ford that they thought of us like that, and that Native people may have even thought of themselves.
You push them up daisies.
Oh, very interesting. Wow.
That's when we developed the sort of Tonto speak that now I think is most associated with the portrayal of Aboriginal people on screen.
But some films, instead of using a native language, well, they just ran English backwards. Listen for the satanic messages.
And as for the Injuns, they're usually white guys in redface.
White people playing native roles, I love it because it's funny. All the big stars played natives.
She can chew on my moccasins anytime she wants to.
White guys playing Indians, you know. Chuck Connors as Geronimo. Just like Adam Sandler as Malcolm X, you know.
I remember once we were on a set, the director says, I want a real native. I said, I want a real native up front. I want to see the real thing. But we couldn't find one.
Native women, on the other hand, are pretty much absent in the Western.
I knew I could count on feminine curiosity.
Except, of course, for the Indian princess, epitomized by Pocahontas.
Why is this woman, the Disney Pocahontas, such a profound image, a mythic image for American people? What about children who know nothing about Native society? And they see this young woman who has this one-shoulder, skimpy dress that she's wearing, and she has Miko, a raccoon that she communes with. Well, the reality of Pocahontas is that at the time of the contact with John Smith and this event, you see, she was about 9 years old. And so we imbue in her all of the wrong notions of what we want to see in a mythical princess. And she becomes the embodiment, not of Native society, she becomes an embodiment of American society, of American desire.
And Native men are reduced to a mere caricature.
Richard Lamont, one of Hollywood's biggest costume designers, knows firsthand about how Hollywood dresses up Indians.
Yeah, a finger necklace. I don't know what show it was, but I'm sure somebody saw that in the research, you know?
Yeah.
Where they used body parts or whatever as trophies, you know, made a necklace.
If you look at the movies in the 30s, Native Americans
I want to say, much like African Americans, were sort of props. Rather than try to make them look regional, everybody was identifiable. So they weren't interested in explaining the tribes. They said, well, they're Indians.
Canelo, this Indian's no Indian.
If he's no Indian, why is he wearing a chicken for a hat?
So to keep things simple,
Every Indian becomes a Plains Indian, wearing the headdress, buckskin, and the headband.
That's not a headband, is it?
Yeah, there probably is a headband.
Headband.
Yeah, and it's probably just like the ones we were talking about, the ones that never existed. Headbands are an interesting thing. Certainly certain Americans, Native American tribes, did use headbands and wear headbands. But the Plains Indians, usually not. But when you're working on a Western and you have stunt people and they're gonna fall off horses, you need to keep their wigs on, and that's the best way to do it. So Hollywood started putting headbands on Plains Indians, and then it just got to be a thing where you saw it in every movie. Headband with an elastic back, something you'd never find on a native.
This is actually, well, probably not calculated, is an ingenious act of colonialism. You are essentially robbing nations of an identity and grouping them into one.
And the Western forces all Indians to live in the deserts of the Southwest. John Ford shot so many movies here that tourists come by the thousands to experience the iconic American West. And to pick up a memento of America's greatest Indian fighter.
Break out the grain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
John Wayne is an icon of American cinema, one of the great action heroes in history. His actions, which are remarkably violent, seem excused, actually, that this is the exact appropriate behavior one would have.
In The Searchers, John Wayne literally uncovers a grave with an Indian person, a dead Indian person in it.
Why don't you finish the job?
And shoots him in the face.
Ain't got no eyes, he can't enter the spirit land. Has to wander forever between the winds. You get it, Reverend. Come on, blanket head.
He embodied the idea of the unstoppable American, that the true American wasn't native. Native Americans were the ones that stopped real Americans from settling their own country.
I found 2 Navajo elders who were extras in some of John Ford's films. Effie and James Etna were teenage sweethearts when they met on set. They're seeing these films for the very first time. James can remember how many of the Navajo actors would go off script in some scenes, joking around in their language. No one ever bothered to translate what was said until now.
If I do not return, General Quate will find you, and you will be dead and all your people.
What then?
No, he is not a fool. You are.
After playing the bonehead savage for so many years, the Navajo get their sweet revenge. right next door to the Navajo is a place where anybody can be a cowboy for a day.
We're out here on vacation. Come on out and have a good time.
Even an Injun like me. Here they worship one man. His swagger is screen legend. His name, the Duke.
John Wayne never did a bad movie, okay, partner? You got it?
Got it, Pilgrim.
All right, Pilgrim. And now where's the little cowboy room? I gotta do a wee-wee.
Everybody's always fantasizes about an age when individuals were very strong. The lone guy traveling across the wide landscape and dealing with all the elements. Everything from rattlesnakes to who knows what.
There's always this kind of John Wayne guy that is sort of the moral standard that represents America and its moral values. So it's a big, hunky white guy that's not real smart, but's gonna do the right thing, and he's gonna drive the Indians away and marry the schoolmarm and walk off into the sunset.
You oughtn't to go too far, Miss Dallas. Apaches like to sneak up and pick off strays.
I'd like to thank you for the use of your Mustang, lady, and apologize for that spur marks on the dashboard.
Who's the quickest draw here?
Who's the quickest? I would say maybe Windy Bill.
Windy Bill? Where's Windy Bill?
That little fella right over there.
I'd like to challenge Windy Bill.
You bring it on, cowboy.
Oh, the gun's stuck in here.
Oh, it's stuck in there.
All right.
I'll let you count.
Okay, on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Whatever number you want.
4. As a kid, I didn't realize it was me Bugs Bunny was killing off on screen.
1 little, 2 little, 3 little Injuns. 4 little, 5 little, 6 little Injuns. Uh-oh, sorry, that one was a half-breed.
Yes, sir, I'd sure love to kill me Indian.
White man came across the sea. He brought us pain.
When we were kids, we used to play cowboys and Indians. I was always Gary Cooper.
Those images do shape people's opinions, and I think they put it at odds a bit for me. You know, when you're kids and you're trying to play cowboys and Indians, and if you're an Indian kid, well, doesn't that mean you're gonna lose all the time?
When we watch the Indians getting slaughtered at the end of every movie, well, my brother would refuse to watch it. Every time that bugle went off and the charge started, my brother, he was a year and a half younger than me, he'd go like this. And he wouldn't look, he wouldn't watch. But we'd come out of those theaters after the cavalry had rescued the white people, and all of a sudden we'd hear, "There's those Indians," and we'd start fighting. We had to fight them white kids. Every Saturday, we knew he was going to get in a fight.
I'm here to find out how Native kids today would react to the kinds of Westerns I saw growing up.
So, what you understand, I want you to listen real carefully and find out what they're talking about, okay?
The film is Little Big Man, where an Indian massacre was made graphic and real for the very first time.
And I am the sole white survivor of the Battle of Little Big Horn.
Little Big Horn was not representative of encounters between whites and Indians, Mr. Crab. You see, the near genocide of the Indian.
The near what?
Near genocide. It means extermination.
See, when they got off the boat, they didn't recognize us. They said, "Who are you?" And we said, "We're the people, we're the human beings." And they said, "Oh, Indians," because they didn't recognize what it meant to be a human being. I'm a human being, this is the name of my tribe, this is the name of my people, but I'm a human being. But then the predatory mentality shows up and starts calling us Indians and committing genocide against us as a vehicle of erasing the memory of being a human being. So they used war textbooks, history books, and when film came along, they used film. You go in our own communities, how many of us are fighting to protect our identity of being an Indian? And 600 years ago, that word Indian, that sound was never made. On this hemisphere, that sound, that noise was never, ever made. Ever. We're trying to protect that as an identity, see? So it affects all of us. It's reached a point, evolutionarily speaking, we're starting to not recognize ourselves as human beings. We're too busy trying to protect the idea of a Native American or an Indian. But we're not Indians and we're not Native Americans. We're older than both concepts. We're the people, we're the human beings.
Thank you for making me a human being. Makes my heart sad. A world without human beings has no center to it.
I always like the best part of any movie is when you heard. Oh, I love that. They're not Indian within miles from here. You know, I just love that. And I think long ago when we had that, we were never stressed out. Because you see old pictures of Indians, we were never fat, we weren't diabetic, heart problems. Because we had problems we had, you know, we didn't need Dr. Phil. So I say we should bring that back. You know, you get somebody from the IRS come over.
There is one face that has become an American icon for all that is good about Native people. Hollywood's most famous Indian actor, Eyes Cody.
Eyes Cody was a very interesting character. All in all, he was probably involved in close to 100 westerns.
And now another kind comes. This one won't go.
He was very much the Plains Indian with the war bonnet, the paint. He fit the image of what people thought American Indians should be. So he became a symbol, an icon for American Indians in this country and all over the world.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
But Iron Eyes, like many heroes, had a secret identity.
He was actually born Oscar de Cordy around 1904 in Louisiana. His parents were immigrants from Sicily and southern Italy. Back then, at the turn of the century in Louisiana, Italians were not welcome. There was a lynching by the Irish against the Italians. So he grew up amongst all sorts of prejudice against Italians. He always loved American Indians very much and wanted to be part of them, even though he was Sicilian. So he took on another identity. He always wanted to be in pictures, so he eventually joined Hollywood.
That's Iron Eyes, behind James Cagney, waiting to be spray painted Indian red.
Behind the camera, he was very much involved. His wife was Native American. He had the whole image in his real life as well as in Hollywood.
Why is it you are Sitting Bull? Put on the war paint. Yeah.
So when the camera stopped, he kept his identity and he became what his image was. He really believed it and he lived it and he breathed it.
You used the bow and arrow. You were pretty good with that. I understand DeMille.
I'm an expert.
DeMille used you in all of his pictures.
I did all of his stuff in the shooting with the bow and arrow into the bodies and things like that. I hunt with a bow and arrow.
The older he got, the more he believed it. I remember visiting his house, and at that time, it was after his stroke. His whole house was just full of photographs with celebrities of himself as an Indian, and he had a number of videos going simultaneously. I counted about 7, where he would be playing his own movies constantly, all the time. He believed he was what he saw on the screen.
Iron Eyes Cody died on January 4th, 1999. Today, I'm meeting the eldest of his 2 adopted sons, Robert Tree Cody.
Robert Tree Cody?
Oh, yes. How are you?
Hey,
Neil?
Neil.
Yes, good morning. Hey, honey, what's the code? You apply a little. What's that? That scene cracks me up where he gets mad.
To this day, Robert celebrates his father as Native.
He was a man with a good heart. He raised us to know the Indian way of life through our dancing and songs, and in language, too. But like I said, I will always stick to my guns. I will defend my father's honor. I will always defend that. I lived with this man, that this man was a great man, that my father was of Indian people.
In the 60s, everything is turned on its head. The Western goes out of style, and the hippies become Indians.
The 60s, man. My daughter said, well, how come you listen to people they were named? The groups were Vanilla Fudge, Cream, Strawberry Alarm Clock. Well, we had the Munchies for 15 years, that's why. And we always tolerated them, too, because they always had the best smoke. So you had to put up, you know, like I was like hippie man, you know, like I was like Indian, you know, in a previous life.
Cherokee people, Cherokee tribe, so proud to live, so proud to die.
I've come to San Francisco, birthplace of the hippie. It's during the summer of love that the Indian is at his grooviest. Sacheen Littlefeather was there.
So, Haight-Ashbury.
Brings back a lot of memories. A lot of people have stolen the street signs over the years, so it must have cost them a fortune to keep replacing them. My first visit to Haight-Ashbury here was in 1966. People were dancing in the streets. Some of them were nude.
Sacheen was raised Native, but when she moved to Haight-Ashbury, people's reactions to the way she dressed surprised her.
People ask me, what are you? Are you a hippie? And I said, no, I'm an Indian. What's a hippie? So I went to a place where the hippies lived to see what a hippie looked like. And I said, I don't look like that. I did some modeling at that time, and they put me in these outfits.
Really?
People emulated the American Indian as a free spirit, and they always said, oh, my great-grandmother is a Cherokee princess.
One of the ways you could honor Native people was to dress like a Native person. So you have this, extension of the headband. And Native people were saying, well, we actually don't dress like that. They also created this fictionalized notion of Native society. And it was supported by the films they were seeing.
They don't understand us. So we do the best we can. At least we stay alive.
Are you alive? They were, in a way, trying to imitate us, but in another way, they were trying to remember who they were. Every human being is a descendant of a tribe. So these white people, they're the descendants of tribes. There was a time in their ancestry when they wore feathers, all right, and they wore beads and shells. There was a time in their ancestry, all right, before this colonizing mentality came and did to them to turn them into the white people they are, and then it came and did it to us. The very same thing that happened to us happened to them.
What's bothering you, Lieutenant? Just human compassion, General. I know who I'm fighting. I'm not sure I understand why.
It's emblematic of one of the ways that people in the 60s, Hollywood particularly, were now trying to deal with their own legacy, which I think at this point was sort of hard to deny, and they were coming to some sort of reconciliation about it.
Bloodthirsty savages on the loose, burning, killing, violating beautiful white women. It's not news anymore. We're going to take a different tack. From now on, we're going to grieve for the noble red man.
Native American people became a great allegorical tool to stand in for virtually any oppressed people.
Savages! Animals!
Apaches!
So you had Native Americans really standing in for the civil rights movement, which is what was going on at the time.
And I've seen the promised land.
It was a moment when Native Americans began to assert themselves more politically and more forcefully.
It was more than 5 months ago that a determined band of American Indians seized Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay in their own demonstration for a better life. Today, they're still there.
This is a country where all men are created equal, and it's the land of the free and the home of truth and justice and liberty for all. But we want to know why that doesn't apply to us.
From the time I went to Alcatraz, I had been out of the non-native world for 6 years trying to find a place, and there was just no place that I felt like I fit. So Alcatraz happened.
We want to be treated as human beings. We want to be looked upon with respect as equals.
The main accomplishment is that it rekindled the spirit of the people. The spirit that is the people, it was diminishing. Because Indians were ashamed, because just the hostility of the non-native communities around native communities. And in its own way, the hostility of the media through the film, because these are subtle hostilities if they're not blatant hostilities. So something was diminishing the spirit, and I think that this activist period of time rekindled the spirit.
That presented a new opportunity to see Native people in a different light, and you began to see filmmakers portray Native people in a completely different manner.
When policemen break the law, then there isn't any law. Just a fight for survival.
Billy Jack was sort of an action hero. He was really representative of something we saw emerge in the 70s, which was a Native-style hero who would use physical violence to enact justice.
I'm gonna take this right foot, and I'm gonna whop you on that side of your face. And you want to know something? There's not a damn thing you're going to be able to do about it.
Really? Kill that Indian son of a bitch.
Felt a little vengeance in this or something. The right kind of vengeance.
Now, I'm an Injun, remember? And we're sneaky. We know how to strike silently, in the dark.
You couldn't help but just root for this guy and what he stood for.
Indian bastard!
In that one character, you have embodied pretty much all of 70s angst and anger that one could in America.
You worked at King, didn't you?
Yes.
Where is he?
Dead.
And where's Bob and Jack Kennedy?
Dead.
Not dead, their brains blown out.
So he would come back and fight off injustice using his feet and fists through kung fu, and in one of the most amusing character traits, would remove his shoe and sock before kicking the heck out of someone.
The Indians start to fight back, not just in the movies, but in real life as well. This is Wounded Knee. For me and many natives, it's sacred ground. What happened here in 1973 would change the image of natives in Hollywood forever. It all started when the American Indian movement faced off against the FBI.
Inside Wounded Knee, the Indians are prepared. They have weapons and Molotov cocktails to handle the armored vehicle which federal agents have moved into position.
The American government fought a war against us. From the tanks that they used at Wounded Knee to the way they used the FBI as paramilitary and National Guards, we were fighting for our lives. Our death casualty went quite high.
We've bet our lives that something meaningful in the course of history and Indian affairs has been changed. We're prepared to die.
We were in Wounded Knee, surrounded by the military might of the United States of America. Their field of fire, it was very precise. The feds
had snipers
and automatic. I mean, they had 50 calibers. Boy, they meant business.
Help would come from the most unexpected source, Hollywood.
I was sitting at home one day, and I got a phone call from Marlon Brando. He was up for an award for Best Actor for The Godfather. And he asked me, would I go up and represent him at the Academy Awards? He said this would be an opportunity to explain to people about the stereotype of Native Americans in film, and also because of the Indian occupation at Wounded Knee in South Dakota.
When we're inside Wounded Knee, they're shooting at us every day and night. And there's quite a few people inside watching in the trading post, the Academy Awards.
The ceremony was due to start about 6 o'clock in the evening. That's when they rolled out the red carpet. And I got dressed in my traditional Indian regalia. But there was a man, and he was the producer of the whole show. And he took that speech away from me. And he warned me very sternly, I'll give you 60 seconds or less. And if you go over that 60 seconds, I'll have you arrested. I'll have you put in handcuffs.
Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Accepting the award for Marlon Brando in The Godfather, Miss Sacheen Littlefeather.
All of a sudden, we get a call. They start yelling, hey, there's an Indian. And so I rushed in there and saw Sacheen Littlefeather just get to the microphone. And she starts making this speech.
I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry. Excuse me.
There was a round of confusion in the whole audience. Everybody's mouths flung open. Everybody was in chaos.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee. I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that we will, in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity. Thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando.
And it was really an experience for me, being lied about in the media, people saying that I wasn't Indian, people saying that I rented my dress. It was a very tough time. There were many death threats at that time.
But it was to personally discredit her and at the same time discredit the message that she was trying to deliver about the depiction of Native people in film. But she was also talking about the atrocities against Native people that were continuing.
We don't believe we're going to get out of there alive. And the morale is down low. And Marlon Brando and Sacheen Littlefeather totally uplifted our lives.
Maybe Marlon Brando will be there by the fire to sit and talk about Hollywood and the good things there for hire, like the Astrodome and the first TV. Marlon Brando, Pocahontas and me.
I just have a dream that someday I will get into the movies, right? And then I will win an Academy Award. Then I'll refuse it because of the mistreatment of Marlon Brando. Thank
you. Will Sampson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of those great performances that is completely memorable.
Raise your hands up. Up. That's it, up, all the way up.
Everyone talks about Nicholson, but you couldn't have that movie without Will Sampson. He's the stoic Indian who really is silent for the movie, but there's something about the way he portrays them. It has a dignity.
Juicy fruit. Well, you sly son of a bitch, Chief. Can you hear me, too? Yeah, you bet. Well, I'll be goddamn, Chief. And they all think you're deaf and dumb. Jesus Christ. You fooled them, Chief. You fooled them all.
There was a beginning to see an ownership over these very stereotypes. So suddenly the fact that Will Sampson plays the stoic Indian in the way he did in that movie, in some ways reclaims that character for our people. It says, I will take it within me, and I will own it, and I will give it a grace.
The character in Cuckoo's Nest started out as the stereotypical Indian, and it rose to a level of humanity as the picture unfolds. He has to become the symbol of freedom for America, really.
Soldiers in your dream, and that means that
That they can't see you now.
You think so?
Yes! Yes! What else did your dream mean?
I never been invisible before.
What we began to see in a film like, say, Little Big Man was an attempt to portray Aboriginal people as non-stereotypes, or at least attempt to flesh out the characters that they could portray on screens.
We're cut off.
It doesn't matter. We're invisible.
It played a lot with satire and sending up a lot of the stereotypes, and it was also home to an absolutely brilliant performance by Chief Dan George, who played the elder in the film with a sly comic wit that I'm not sure we'd ever seen.
Take care of my son here. See that he doesn't go crazy.
The outlaw Josie Wales, Eastwood in the film, encounters this native man played by Chief Dan George, and he's hilarious in the movie.
Glad you stopped me when you did. I might have killed her.
Oh, I noticed that.
Got most of the humor in the film. So that's what attracted me to the script in the first place, is that the Indians were treated as people with all different kinds of shadings.
I guess you were right. I ain't that old after all.
He was an elder, but he wasn't pseudo-wise, you know. He wasn't the cliche of the wise tribal leader. He was kind of a guy who was adrift, just like Josie Wales was.
I'm getting better at sneaking up on you like this. Only an Indian can do something like this.
Only an Indian could do something like that.
He was the key that brought that warmth and authenticity of who Native people really are, because he had that sense of humor. See, one of the things that I think is a very vital part in our community, what has kept us alive, is humor. Our ability to laugh at just, you know, it gets ugly sometimes, and our ability to laugh at the ugly.
Couple of horses. Far off, moving fast.
I don't hear nothing.
Gotta be an Indian to know those things.
Humor is the thread that we weave our lives around as Native people, because the humor has saved us. Great spirit and humor, that's what saved us.
Comedy, the ability to make light throughout this, was one of his great, great skills. And it's Clint Eastwood at his violent best, and yet in the middle of that film, there's Chief Dan George undoing a lot of the problems that had been done before him in a single role.
Usually have problems doing my act, you know, because I know a lot of you white people never seen an Indian do stand-up comedy before, you know. Like for so long, you probably thought that Indians never had a sense of humor, you know. We never thought you were too funny either.
In the 80s, the Western goes out of style. It wasn't until the 90s that the Indian comes back big.
The 90s began as a decade with the iconic movie that started it all, Dances with Wolves.
It was a box office hit. It picked up several Oscars, including Best Picture, and people lined up in droves because it was a Western, and a very good one at that.
The natives were fleshed out as characters, allowed to be seen as more complete people. They weren't just warriors. They weren't just peaceful.
You there!
So it is a very sensitive and sympathetic approach. It doesn't erase the fact that at its core, the film is not a native movie. It is still a movie made from the outside of us and is about us and is meant to be sympathetic towards us, but it isn't us.
It's a story about a white guy. And Indians are the T and A, but it gets promoted as being about Native people or Indians, but it's not really. We're just backdrop.
I thought, okay, here's a guy with a mullet, and he conveniently finds a white woman in the Indian camp. And when they show her portrayal in it, was, well, she lived with these native people. She would have been well groomed and dressed like them. They had her dressed like Wilma Flintstone with mud on her and disheveled and lost.
And then to treat my nation like we don't know how to fight?
Shoot the gun!
We, the Lakota, who are responsible, the first nation to ever militarily defeat the United States of America on the field of battle, and Lawrence of the Plains has to teach us how to fight.
But it's a brilliant performance by Graham Greene. I think that beginning with that performance, that Graham Greene becomes legend.
I had to learn Lakota. I'd work 8 hours a day on it until I was fluent in what I was saying. I can't even speak my own language. The only language I speak is English, and not very well.
He expanded what it was meant to be a native on screen. And for us to see ourselves is very empowering. And to see ourselves presented in the way Graham Greene did it is especially empowering. In many ways, I think that performance is what has informed so many of the films that have followed.
With the huge success of Dances with Wolves, playing Indian meant box office hits for Hollywood and its stars. Scenes, stories, and roles were designed to cash in on the new popularity. Being Indian was lucrative and cool again.
That's all I ever heard. Half-breed, how I learned to hate the word.
Oddly enough, this resurgence of the Western bankrolls the birth of independent native cinema. And for the first time, I hear my own language in the movies. Even the leaders of the American Indian movement, Russell Means and John Trudell, go Hollywood. Cast in films like Thunderheart for a touch of native street cred.
You resist, it all gets real simple real fast, you know? Subject resisted, subject is dead. Get it?
Government wiped out the political movement by the 80s. What is emerging out of that is a cultural, artistic voice. And I see it coming. There's more native filmmakers, songwriters, and so out of all that native creativity that's coming out, see, we will find our voice.
It's a good day to be Indigenous. It's 45 degrees in the sun. It's 8 a.m. Indian time.
Smoke Signals was another of the films that came right at the end of the 90s that started the golden age of Aboriginal cinema. This was a movie made by a native guy, Chris Eyre, starring native people, and not about what occurred 120 years ago. It was a movie about nativeness now, and that was a big breakthrough.
You're leaving the res and going into a whole different country, cousin.
But it's the United States.
Damn right it is. That's as foreign as it gets. Hope you two got your vaccinations.
Maybe all we need is a good laugh. Maybe that's all we need as a people, is a good laugh. And I think Evan Adams, was really the center of that.
Nobody can help us. No Superman, no Batman, no Wonder Woman. Not even Charles Bronson, man.
I was watching Evan perform, and I said, Evan, what are you doing? I go, what are you playing? Because I could never place it. He had this Indian humor and goodness to him. And he kept it the whole time we were shooting. I said to Evan, no, what's going on? What are you doing here, And he told me he was playing his grandma.
After crisscrossing North America, I finally arrive. Hollywood. Living in the Hollywood Hills is one of today's most successful native actors, Adam Beach.
The perception of who we are in Hollywood has a lot of respect because they are still fascinated with who we are as a culture, as a people, throughout history and stories they tell through film, which is great because it really teaches a lot of people that, we have something to offer to the world.
In his starring role in Clint Eastwood's Flags of Our Fathers, Adam Beach puts a human face to the stereotype of the drunken Indian.
Tear down, son. Tear down, Ira. Tell him down.
Ira Hayes was consumed by alcohol. I myself, I can't even attempt to drink one in a crowd because there's another drunk Indian. I've always called myself a child of an alcoholic. So throughout that film, when you watch it, that's me. It's not acting.
Jesus Christ, he's drunk. Goddamn Indians.
Adam, I know he's very conscious of the problems in the community of alcoholism, and been on the reservations and had done work in this area, and made him play it very well.
I think I could see my mom before they shipped me off. I think they do that.
Here's a human being shedding human emotion. No stereotypes. No stoic Indian. It's just a young boy that wants to see his mom, who lost a lot in his friends.
I'm at the end of my quest, back up north in the high Arctic community of Igloolik. After traveling across America, the answers were here all along. It's an unlikely place to give birth to a film that has revolutionized Native cinema and gone on to win at the Cannes Film Festival. At the Narjuat, the Fast Runner captures one of the Inuits' most cherished legends and brings it to the world.
At an Arjwa, to me, was that point where cinema was being altered to tell our stories our way. And gone were the stereotypes of past. Really, in that one movie, there's none of that nonsense. It's a gloriously sexy film set in the Arctic.
Wow, I've never seen anything like this before. This is so pure in its soul.
I always say that that's the most Indian movie ever made. It's much more Indian than Smoke Signals. Smoke Signals was made for Indian people, but certainly for the overculture. When you get a movie like The Fast Runner, you're watching this movie and you're saying to yourself, this is an inside job.
Outside of town, in his hunting cabin, I meet the director of The Fast Runner, Zacharias Kunuk. I ask him why he makes films.
I see it as talking back. We picked up the camera and started recording our own history. The stories that we used to hear when we were children. What do we believe and why we are here?
As his elders pass on, so does their knowledge. Zach is in a race against time.
I had a problem. I went to a romantic scene where two people are kissing, French necking, but French necking is not our culture. And so we're making this story. I'm sitting down with the elders, asking them, how did you get married? What is Inuit kiss like? And that's what we've been using the camera for. How much trouble they went through to get us here. To capture it now, because 10 years down the road, most of the elders will be gone.
The most compelling moment of his film is when the Fast Runner runs.
The enemy arrives and with lances try to kill everybody under the tent, and you have blood all over. So you have a metaphoric naissance when out of this blood patch, this bear man arrived and ran freely in the sun. That's the new cinema. That's the image of the new Aboriginal in North America.
You have a native guy running across the ice, naked, through the water, in the snow. And as a director, I'm sitting there and I'm saying, that's not an actor, because an actor wouldn't do that.
Natar Ungalak, who plays Atanajad, he knows the story. He knows that he's going to have to run naked across the ice in this movie. That's the iconic image. There might be all kind of other things we can change in this film, but we can't change that. We had a props genius make up fake feet. The fake feet tore up right away. Running on ice is not smooth. It's very abrasive. So you got to film that maybe 50 times. The actor was so committed, responsible to the requirement of his role, which is an iconic legend in his culture, that he was willing to do things that, you know, most people, even if they were willing to do, maybe couldn't do.
A new age of Native cinema is born. These films revolutionize the Native image for the world.
Those movies, the movies made in the North, are incredibly special. And they are progress. They're finally an Aboriginal cinema that isn't someone else's. The gaze is ours. But at the same time, you have a whole Aboriginal cinematic movement springing up all over the world, where you have filmmakers in New Zealand, filmmakers in Australia, and filmmakers in North America and South America making truly Aboriginal movies.
You don't always have to make great representations of Native people. We're not asking for that. We're not asking to be, you know, nobles or righteous or good all the time. We're asking to be human.
Indians aren't dead. We're here. We're vital. We got something to say. We got something to play.
To see it come in my lifetime is very empowering for a culture. We can't describe the importance now. They'll be described years from now by critics far probably more important than me. They will talk about, I think, what those movies have meant.
We're creative natives, and we're like the Energizer Bunny. The mightiest nation in the world tried to exterminate us, anglicize us, Christianize us, Americanize us, but we just keep going and going. And I think that Energizer Bunny must be Indian. He's got that little water drum he plays. And I always say, next time you have a powwow, have the Energizer Bunny lead the grand entry. And after a few rounds, then we can get together and eat him. Because we never waste anything. We share everything. And it's all right. I don't mind laughs in the show. I mean,